Hey everybody, welcome back to Three Questions. This is Chris, and today I have Melody Perkins with me, who I've known like 25 years or something ridiculous like that. I think that's right. And she is married to Todd for how long have you guys been married?
16 years.
So she had to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she's here. I remember I think the first semester I was in seminary, I called Melanie. I think I called you and said, "Hey, can I come have lunch with you and hear about what you do?" And she's still doing it, which is amazing. So, first, I'm going to ask you our three questions. There's so much she could tell us, but I'm just going to ask her three. First, tell us what's your little corner of the kingdom and what do you do there?
Okay. Hi, Chris. I'm at in St. Louis at Grace and Peace Fellowship. It's a smallish PCA church on the edge of the city. We've been here as a church for about 55 years, and I've been here 28 years and 25 years full time, working for the shelter as the ministry team leader and the ministry facilitator. For the rest of my hours, I lead all the aspects of our ministry that has been sheltering homeless women through our cold winter nights in St. Louis since 1986. So I've been here 25 winters doing that. Our ministry not only gives the women love, shelter, and basic necessities, but as we were talking about before, it also trains believers and anyone with the interest and a compassionate heart who may or may not be a believer to work with the poor instead of being intimidated by them or confused about what to do. And one central foundation, really the central foundation of our ministry, is that we want to reflect to people by what we do and what we say that they are people, each one of them created in God's image and treasured by that creator who made them. So that is what we are all about. This big and busy world that we all live in doesn't say or reflect that very many times at all to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what we are all about in our shelter work. And that's the story.
25 years.
Just
25.
about 25 years. It'll be 25 years later this year. Yep.
That's amazing. And before we were recording, I was saying you can see there's a picture behind Melody. You don't have to point to it, but you can see it in the screen that when she comes back on that was a woman who was a guest in the shelter. And they're called guests, right? And
That's right.
they're treated like guests. And my daughter and I have worked there several times and it's wonderful to go. It's a wonderful place to be. Can you tell us, do you have a specific story you can tell us about God working through the shelter ministry recently?
Sure. And Chris, it's been a great joy to have you and your daughter involved for a long time, ever since she was a little girl,
Yeah,
too.
little.
um, so there are so many stories, but here's one that keeps coming to mind. There was a young woman who I'll call Mary, who phoned me just 6 nights before we were scheduled to close for this winter. So that was almost mid-March when she called. She had just turned 18 and she was being kicked out of her mother and stepfather's home because she hadn't gotten a job during the first 6 days that she'd been an adult. So she was very sad and afraid. And she was failing 12th grade because her school bus kept failing to pick her up and her parents would not take her to school. So she had missed so many days that she was sure she was going to not graduate.
Mm.
And I said, we have one bed open. Why don't you come on over? So she came over. She was the sweetest, most mannerly young lady that you have ever seen. And she was just as tiny as a minute. And she came and stayed 5 nights. And during that time, we were able to not only give her shelter and feed her when she needed it. She was little as a minute, so she really wasn't eating a lot, but she did go to school a couple of those days.
Mm.
And she got in touch with an aunt of hers who lived in another state. And that aunt drove all the way up here from Louisiana and picked her up and took her back to Louisiana to live in a safe home where she can go to school, finish high school, got her ID and her birth certificate back. and she can begin her young adulthood in a safe place in a safe way. And so that is one of the stories that we were able to do with God's help this spring, this
Yeah, and
late
if you
spring.
asked Melody, those who are listening, she would tell you lots of stories like this. Like she has lots of stories about different people in different places and different of those 25 years. And it's just
Mhm.
so encouraging to hear. So how can we, your brothers and sisters in your denomination, if you could think of a way that we could help encourage and support you in this work that you do, what would it be?
I would say three things. The first thing I would say is pray. And
Mm,
that would be pray for me, pray for our guests, pray for anybody you know that is spending their time day to day and night to night working with the people that are in these hard situations and walking with them. Just imagine yourself for a moment. If you were doing that, what would you want to be prayed for?
mm,
Pray that for us. Also, I would say if you have a chance, start a ministry. It doesn't have to be a shelter. Maybe it's a weekend shelter. Maybe it's an outreach where you go out and talk to people that are sitting on the streets homeless and you buy them lunch and maybe you share the gospel with them or maybe you just buy them lunch and or get involved yourself or your church with another ministry church that has the equipping or the calling to do that type of a ministry and just get involved because you will be an essential part of that ministry if you're offering yourself to serve. You yourself will be blessing that ministry, but you also will be growing, and
mm.
your people in your congregation will be growing as you join. And the third thing that I would say is certainly if you get half a chance, donate. God is very, very generous to those of us who are working in his work for the poor, but certainly donate if you have a chance.
Mm.
Those are the things, the three things I would say up front.
So I
Thank
love your challenge to us to go at least get involved or start one yourself. It is
you.
kind of crazy to think like Grace and Peace is not huge, but God has just over the years given money and people and meals, and it just keeps going,
Mhm.
which is so encouraging. Thank you for telling us, your brothers and sisters, what God's doing in this little corner of St. Louis.
You
Thanks,
are
Melanie.
welcome, and it's my great pleasure. Thanks.